Let's turn now to With You today. Every day, of course, we're learning more and more about this COVID-19 virus. And of course, that means lots more questions, and you've been sending them to us in collaboration with Facebook and Instagram. We're really trying to answer as many of these questions as we can with the help of NBC News medical correspondent Dr. John Torres. Hi, Dr. John. Let's get right to it. Here's our first question. This is from Reba on Facebook. She asks, is the virus mutating and becoming something different from what originally arrived in our country? And can people become reinfected with it? What do you say?
So right now what they're looking at is the virus in different parts of the world, and they've done a genome check. In other words, they've looked at the genetics of the virus, and they found out that even though it seems to be changing a little bit, overall it's a very stable virus, and it hasn't mutated. If you think about the flu, every year it's a different flu, and it mutates enough to where we need new vaccines. This one is very stable and doesn't seem to have mutated, and they don't think it's going to mutate that much over the next year or so.
So does that mean that if you get it, then you probably won't get it again?
That's the theory right now. And what it's looking like is when people get it, they get this immunity to it because they build up their antibodies. That immunity, we're not sure how long it'll last because sometimes they last a while, sometimes they go away after just a little bit of time. But most experts are saying they think it's going to last at least a year, hopefully a lot longer than that.
Okay, and actually our next Facebook question is on that. It's from Brenda. Do they have testing available to test for antibodies in blood for those who think they may have already had it?
So right now there's a test called an ELISA test, and it can test for antibodies, but it's a bit of a cumbersome test because it requires a blood draw. It has to be sent to the lab. Takes a day or two to get results. What they talked about last night on a press conference, Dr. Burke said we need a point-of-care testing where they can basically do a finger prick test. They can get blood, and they can tell within a few minutes whether you have the antibodies or not. This is going to help us with a couple of things, finding out all the asymptomatic cases that are out there, which is probably a large number, but more importantly, you've probably heard of that convalescent plasma we've been talking about, which can be used to treat somebody. If somebody has infected with it, they have antibodies in their body, we can tell from that plasma, we can tell from that test if they have the antibodies, use their plasma to treat somebody else. Again, that treatment though is going to be used on a case-by-case basis only for the critically ill. It's not quite up to FDA approval yet, so again, it's just going to be used very sparingly and only if they need to.
Okay, I got a couple more. Here we go. Next question from David on Facebook. Is it true men seem to be suffering more seriously from the virus than women?
It is true that men seem to be suffering more seriously. A couple things. They seem to be getting it more often, and they seem to be having worse outcomes because of it. And we think there's a few reasons. Number one, men tend to engage in riskier behaviors, and they're not necessarily listening to all the social distancing. They tend to gather more and do more things together, which spreads it around. On top of that, they have higher rates of smoking overall, especially in different parts of the world. China and Italy, we've noticed huge increases there. And women generally tend to have stronger immune systems overall because of their genetics, and that stronger immune system is helping them survive this more than men. It's not a huge difference, but it's a big enough difference that it's raising a few red flags.
All right, I really only have 20 seconds, but Valerie on Facebook says, is acetaminophen, which is what's in Tylenol, really better to use rather than ibuprofen? People have said ibuprofen might make it worse.
And this is hitting a lot on social media. Experts are saying there's no credible evidence behind this. The World Health Organization did a quick review of the data and said they find no data to support this. And so overall, they're both equally good. If you're excessively worried about it, then I would just switch to acetaminophen or Tylenol at this point. But there's no evidence that to say that ibuprofen is any worse than acetaminophen.
Okay, Dr. Torres, thank you. Keep the questions coming.